Where to begin? I guess when I was only 19, I had just graduated from high school and headed off to college. Like a lot of guys at the time, I probably thought I was cool. I dated a lot and tried to see how many girls I could seduce. God, how I loved this challenge. Will she or won't she? That is the question. I had as many yes as no. I started going to college, but like most young guys at the time, I eventually dropped out. My thoughts were about seduction, not about studying. But I learned enough in college to get a good job. I worked in sales, which took me into a lot of homes. Damn, I loved it. Most of the places I stopped were for business, and I got through it by being one of the best salespeople. And then there were stops for the sake of seduction. This is when you felt it when entering the home. A woman, usually alone, dressed in sexy clothes, or robes, and nightgowns. In these cases, I usually made a deal quickly, and then did what comes naturally to a young guy and a single woman of any age. The hardest thing was to determine whether a woman was flirting with me or wanted sex. I didn't want to lose my job because of the opportunity to tumble when there was so much going on around me. I usually let the women take the initiative. If they started talking about sex or made the first move, I would jump on their bones. I may have missed out on a lot of opportunities just to be on the safe side. I ended up meeting a really nice girl while doing a little shopping at the mall. She was a sweet little thing, just over 5 feet tall, with a big smile and big breasts. While she was servicing me, I used my charm to try to get her to go out on a date. After about the 10th visit to the store, she agreed to go out with me. I really fell in love with this girl. I just hoped she felt the same way. I was still working in sales while dating Nancy. We got along great together and ended up making love. Yes, it was love. It was so different from the sex I was used to. I wanted to please this woman, not just myself. After 10 months of dating, she became pregnant. She took contraceptives, but apparently we were one of the 1%. We got married in the 4th month of pregnancy. Looking back, I don't think I was ready for marriage. I loved Nancy. I really did. But I was 20 and rather immature. I was thinking with the wrong head. I had sex with several girls after I got married, just because I could. It wasn't the same as tender sex with Nancy. Most of all, I still believed it was a chase. Just saying that, I managed to get a girl into bed, and then doing it. I didn't brag about it to anyone, but I believe people knew. I was a married guy with a baby on the way. I know people want to call me a bastard, an asshole, a jerk, and all the other adjectives. I deserve to be called that. I know this now, but then it was just a desire to get into the bed of any woman. I was an immature child. One day, Nancy found out that I slept with one of the girls in the office. She cried, and we talked about it. She was thinking about divorce, and maybe she should have done it. In the end, she forgave me. I really started to feel bad about this connection. For some reason, when I was 20, I didn't think about the consequences of my actions until it was too late. Then learning what it did to my loving wife, it tore me apart. I vowed to never cheat on her again if she forgave me. I kept that promise and tried to be a good husband. Our son was born, whom we named Jacob. Now we are a family. We had our problems, like any family. We were always short of money. We didn't agree on what to buy. Like any young couple, we had big differences of opinion, but we were able to resolve them. One thing was for sure, and that was that after my infidelity, my love for Nancy intensified. I might not always show it, but she was there. I would die for this woman. Making love to her was fantastic. I believe it was because of the effort we both put in. A couple of years later, we had another son, David. We couldn't be happier. We were a real family, probably as ordinary as it can be. I've always wanted to have my own business, to control your destiny. Nancy and I talked a lot about this. Money was pretty tight with 2 boys and all the other expenses. Finally, we found a small hardware store. We bought it in installments and made the business successful. Not a lot of money, but enough to survive. I was really happy that I was able to achieve this dream of owning my own business. A wonderful wife and 2 sons. Life was good. Nancy didn't lose all the weight after her second child. She always talked bad about herself. I told her she looked good. I loved her fat, thin, it didn't matter to me. Of course, she never really believed me, but it was the truth. When I looked at her, I didn't think about her weight. Sure, a beautifully sculpted body looks great, but I loved Nancy regardless of the weight factor. In addition, she was a little plump, not obese. Hell, I was 30 pounds overweight myself. She was constantly on diets. I was always trying something new to lose weight. We argued about this over and over again. She always ended arguments by reminding me of the cheating, even if it was years ago. I think even though she said she forgave me, deep down, the negative feelings were still there. She worked part-time while the boys were growing up. After the boys entered high school, she received a promotion at work. She became a department manager and began to earn much more money. She decided to start dieting again and also joined a women's fitness club. This didn't bother me as it was a women-only place. When a woman signs up for a fitness club but her husband doesn't, it seems to lead to cheating. I was surprised that she continued to do this. She began to lose weight and felt better. This made me happy. I liked it when she was happy. And if being thinner made her happier, then I was happy. Our sex life started to pick up again. Like most married couples, it faded away for several years due to family commitments. Every time we made love, it was good. I think after years of marriage, you just take sex for granted. Sometimes we wouldn't have sex for up to 2 months. But then, when we made love, it was wonderful. She liked her job and her new body. She just seemed much happier. Then it happened. She came home and asked if I would mind if she went out with her friends. I said, "Of course not. You've been going out with them for years." She mentioned that they were having a bachelorette party on Saturday and wanted to make sure I didn't have a problem with that. This seemed strange to me. I knew something was bothering her. So I asked her what the problem was. She simply said that she may be going through the menopause phase and her mood swings are probably getting on her nerves. I hugged her and told her I loved her and would always be there for her. She just hugged me back. I felt her shudder a little. I knew we had a problem, but this was not the time to face it. I just had to think and decide how to approach her. On Saturday, I watched her get dressed to go out with the girls. She simply put on a pair of black pants and a nice blouse. She looked good, but to me, she always looked good, and I often told her that. She told me where they were going to go in case I needed her for something. Then her friend Pam picked her up and they left. This bothered me. I needed to know what was happening to her. I waited a few minutes and went myself. I really didn't want to spy on her because I always trusted her. There just seemed to be something wrong with her behavior. I needed to find out what it was. Nancy and her friends went to a combination dance hall dock lounge nightclub. He was really big. It was easy to get lost in the crowd. I went up to the second floor to a view from the balcony where I could look out over the lower level. I could see Nancy and her friends sitting together in 2 semicircular booths. They seemed to be having a good time. Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps this was not part of the problem. I ordered a drink and just watched Nancy. I felt bad for being here, but I needed to know for my own well-being. Nancy's friends were a mixture of married, single, and divorced women. I've met most of them once or twice. There were a few that I didn't recognize. I assumed that she met them at the fitness club. After about half an hour, a few guys came over and asked some of the girls to dance. The first couple of times, Nancy refused, but after she had a few drinks, she agreed to dance a little. I didn't really see it as a big deal, but because of the potential problems she could face, it made me nervous. She started spending more and more time on the dance floor. I didn't recognize any of the guys. They could be from work or just strangers looking for a good time. I decided to stay a little longer to see what was happening. She started doing some slow dances with one guy, and he held her close. I saw him put his hands on her ass and pull her towards him. She simply pushed his hands back. He did this several times, and she kept pushing them away. The last time he grabbed her ass, she left his hand there a little longer before pushing him away. Then I saw him raise his hand and touch her breast. He held her there for a few seconds, and then she pushed his hand away again. This bothered me. Should I say or do something? Should I somehow confront her? She shouldn't have known I was here. I wondered if this had happened before, or maybe she just didn't want to make a scene. I just didn't know. It was out of character for her to do nothing. After the song ended, she returned and sat down with her friends. I was too far away to hear the conversations, but some of the girls were laughing or smiling. It could be anything. A few minutes later, the girls were finishing their drinks and getting ready to leave. They said goodbye to other girls and boys. The guy Nancy was dancing with came up and gave her a little goodbye kiss. Nothing special, just a light kiss, but it really bothered me. Did I see more in this than I should have? I know I'll never forget it, no matter how innocent it was. I quickly got up and walked out the back door, got into the car and drove home. The boys were already in their room watching TV. I just said hi to them and went to make myself a drink. I already smelled alcohol and decided this would be a good cover. Nancy arrived within 10 minutes and I met her. I asked if she had a good time and she said yes, but seemed a little nervous. I looked her in the eyes and said, "Nancy, do we need to talk?" To my knowledge, Nancy has never lied to me. I'm sure she had secrets like everyone else, but I never caught her telling an outright lie. I saw tears appear in the corners of her eyes. She looked at me and said, "Jim, I have a problem and I don't know what to do." And she started crying. I hugged her and held her close, asking if this had anything to do with her bachelorette party. She said, "Yes, no, maybe, I don't know. Let's sit down. I think we need to talk." I said, "Nancy, tell me why you're so upset. Starting with this evening, what happened?" I wanted her to tell me about tonight because I saw what happened and could appreciate her sincerity. "Well," she said, "we got to the club and started drinking. I started dancing with a few guys. One in particular, he was touching my butt and breasts and I should have hit him, but I didn't. I let him grope me. I didn't stop him. I pushed his hands away, and when he put them back, I wasn't really angry. Nancy, why didn't you stop him, pushed him away or anything?" She cried lightly and said, "I loved it, Jim. I wanted him to touch me. I'm so sorry, I can't shake these feelings. It's driving me crazy." "Was this the first time this happened, Nancy?" She started crying again and said, "No, this has been happening for the last couple of months, and I can't get over it. I want to be touched. I want men to want me." "Oh my God, Nancy, have you cheated on me? Have you slept with other men? Have you cheated on me?" She cried and responded to me at the same time, saying, "God, no, Jim. I've never cheated on you. I've never been with another man. Never. But lately, I've been letting men touch me. I was hoping it was just a passing phase. I'm going through and you'll never know. I just can't hide it anymore. It's tearing me apart. I can't live like this. I needed to tell you. Jim, I love you so much, but I feel like I'm missing something. You're the only man I've been with. I know you've been with other women." "Stop, Nancy. You haven't thought about this cheating for the last 15 years. You're not going to use it against me now to have an affair. Is that what you want, Nancy? My permission to cheat on me, to make a cuckold of me, to turn me into a weakling? That won't happen, Nancy. I love you with all my heart. I always will, but you won't make me look like a fool so you can satisfy your whims. Someone you can compare me to. Well, Nancy, is this what you want? A chance to have your own little connections and then come home to me after?" Nancy replied, "I don't know, Jim. I just don't know," while she cried. I had tears in my eyes when I told Nancy she was right. Neither of us could live like this. We both needed time to think. I told her that we would be separated for about 2 months. She could live in the house with our sons. I'll be living in the apartment above my hardware store. She said, "Jim, I love you. I don't want you to leave. I'm just all confused. Please don't leave me." 2 months, Nancy, 2 months to decide if you want your freedom and newfound sexual activity or if you want to stay married to me. I have no idea what you're going to do, but if you decide to become a whore for anyone, I will file for divorce immediately. These 2 months are for you to decide what you really want, not to see how many connections you can have. I will just take it day by day and suggest you do the same. Since tomorrow is Sunday, I'll pack my personal things and take them to the apartment. I'll also talk to the boys in the morning. The next morning, I told Jacob and David to gather in the living room. I think they heard part of the conversation from their room the night before. They sat down as I explained that their mother and I were going through some marital difficulties and that I would be living above the store until we sorted things out. I explained that it was not their fault, but an issue between their mother and me. Nancy stood behind them with tears in her eyes but did not say a word. I explained to them that we both loved them very much and that they could talk to us any time. I will still attend their school events. Nothing has changed except that I won't be living in the house. No matter what the future brings, they will always have a roof over their heads and won't have to worry about moving and losing friends. They wanted to know more, but I told them that was all I could tell them for now. I said that their mother and I had serious problems that needed to be resolved. We will know within 2 months what will happen next. My boys were sad as they helped me move my personal belongings to the apartment above the store. I told them that everything would be fine and asked them to help their mother as much as possible. She needs their love if we are to remain a family. I instructed them not to ask her questions about the separation and to help her around the house. They were good boys, and I knew they would do their best. I was only a mile away if they needed me. Nancy needed time to figure everything out. I myself was in a world of confusion. What if I lose her? My life began to turn into hell. What could I do? Now everything depended on Nancy. I had serious problems to overcome. I had a wife who, as far as I knew, had never cheated on me, and I trusted her. She stayed with me through my bad times and kept our marriage alive. As far as I know, she always told me the truth. Although the last truth she told me could have ended our marriage, I really loved her and didn't want to lose her. I was not a weakling and never will be. I was ready to fight for her, but I had no idea what to do. It was the biggest decision of her life. Have an affair or save our marriage. I won't let her do both. I moved into my apartment above the store. It was lonely there. I missed Nancy so much. I tried to give Nancy space to make a decision. I spent as much time in the store as I could just to keep myself busy. Business was really starting to pick up and I was having a hard time keeping up with all the damn paperwork. I liked the sales part, but I hated the paperwork. I decided that I would have to hire someone to do the bookkeeping. I placed an advertisement in the newspaper for a vacancy for an office worker with business experience. I will be conducting interviews next week. My sons stopped by every other day or so to help me set up merchandise and make deliveries. I only had 2 permanent employees besides me working there. I asked the boys how their mother was feeling and how she was doing. They said she cried almost every night and was really depressed. They said she finally made an appointment with the doctor. About 2 weeks after I moved out, I was sitting in my office doing paperwork when Pam walked in. Pam has been Nancy's best friend since childhood. If anyone knew Nancy better than I, it was Pam. She had been divorced for a couple of years, but she and Nancy were closer than sisters. There was little between them that they did not share. Pam came up to me and straight up said, "You stupid bastard. What the hell is wrong with you? How could you do this to Nancy?" I said, "Wait, Pam, you don't know..." But she interrupted me. "No, wait, you stupid idiot. Nancy loves you. She always loved you. She had problems, and she came to you with them. The only person she loves. And what the hell? You did? You left her. How could you be so stupid? Instead of helping her, you threw her to the wolves. I'm so mad at you, I could kill you." "But Pam," I said, "she doesn't know what she wants. I can't just let her have connections. I'm giving her time to figure it out, to make a decision. You're an idiot. She needs love and connection. She's confused and vulnerable right now. Don't you see what you did? Instead of helping her, loving her, and caring for her, you abandoned her. God, I just can't believe that you were stupid enough to leave her. The guys at the store are making bets on who she'll be with. Everyone sees how vulnerable she is. The only person she loves turns away from her and says, 'Figure it out yourself.' Jim, you better get your head out of your ass if you want to save her." I was, to put it mildly, in shock. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now after talking to Pam, I think I might have been wrong. I did tell Nancy that I would always be there for her. Then I left. Damn, Pam was right. What a fool I am. I looked at Pam and said, "What should I do? I'm lost. I just don't know how to help her. You know, I've always loved her more than life itself. You're her best friend. Didn't you see this beforehand?" Pam responded, "Nancy and I have been talking about this for months. Maybe Nancy is going through some changes or something. Every woman is different in her emotional swings. Ever since Nancy started working out at the gym, she's been communicating with other women who may have influenced her in some way, made her think differently. Then, after she lost 50 pounds, other men started paying attention to her and complimenting her. The last thing Pam told me before she left was that I had to be at Ramon's on Friday at 9 p.m. I could either take Nancy home or say goodbye to her. I was shocked. "What the hell does this mean? What are you talking about, Pam? What's going on?" She replied, "The management is having a business meeting on Friday at 7 p.m. All middle managers are required to be there. There will be dinner and cocktails after the meeting. This is for management employees only, no spouses. Word is that a couple of managers are going to get Nancy drunk and try to seduce her. I wasn't allowed in because I'm not in control, so no one will be there to protect Nancy. They also hinted that it would be a dress-up event. I think you can guess why. Does Nancy know about this, Pam?" "Yes, but she is part of the management and must visit. She said she would watch her drinking and try to stay out of trouble." "Pam, thank you for being such a good friend to Nancy. I guarantee you one thing. Someone will defend Nancy on Friday at 9 p.m. It will be her stupid, idiot husband who doesn't deserve her. That husband will be there." I met Jim when we were teenagers. I was working in a store in a shopping center when he walked in. He kept trying to get me to go out with him. It was pretty funny. He came back day after day, trying to get me to go out on a date. Then one day I just decided to say yes. He looked at me as if something was wrong because I had turned him down so often. "Are you really serious? Are you really willing to go out with me?" he asked with a smile. "Yes, Jim, I agree with you," I said, "but no nonsense." We started meeting regularly. We started kissing. He kissed me, and I started letting him touch me over my clothes. I fell in love with him with all my soul, but I never wanted to show it. After a few months, he started touching my breasts under my clothes. I knew we were going to get closer, so I made an appointment with the doctor for birth control. I had been taking them for about 3 days when Jim invited me to the beach. I put on my 2-piece swimsuit. It was already late, and there was almost no one on the beach. I remember it like it was yesterday. That's when I lost my virginity to Jim. There were tears in my eyes. He asked what was the matter. I told him that I was afraid that after he got what he wanted, he wouldn't love me anymore tomorrow. He said, "I will always love you, Nancy. I will always be there for you." From that day on, we made love almost every time we met. I missed 2 periods in a row and went to the doctor. I told him maybe it was because of the contraceptives I was taking. The doctor looked at me and said, "Nancy, you're pregnant." I said, "But, doctor, I took the pills." He told me that maybe I started taking them too late, or maybe I was one of 100 who got pregnant despite the pill. I left his office in a state of shock. I went to Jim, and he saw that I was upset. He asked me, "What's the problem?" I had tears in my eyes and said, "I'm pregnant." He looked at me and said, "I thought you were taking pills." I told him, "I took, but I still got pregnant. I will keep the baby, regardless of whether you want anything to do with me and the baby. I love you, but I would never trap you." Then Jim got down on one knee, looked at me and said, "Nancy, will you marry me? I promise, I will always be there for you and the baby." Of course, I said yes, and that's how our life together began many years ago. Several life-changing events have happened in the last couple of months, small in nature, but still life-changing. I got a promotion at work, more money, more prestige. I became one of the bosses, part of middle management. My sons were at an age where I wasn't needed as much, which gave me more independence. I started going to the gym to lose weight. I really did it. I lost 50 pounds and felt much better. Jim, my husband, said that my weight never mattered to him. He was my husband, and he loved me, so he looked through rose-colored glasses. What else could he say? Other men began to pay more and more attention to me. I always received compliments, which of course was nice. I didn't want to be involved with these men, but it was nice to receive so many compliments. At the gym, I heard other women talking about their lovers, how men flirted with them, how they teased men to get more attention. Some women compared the men they slept with. These were just women talking, but they made you think. Recalling these conversations, I noticed that these women were talking about sex, not love, not about relationships and husbands and family. They were just talking about sex. When they asked me about my sex life, I just smiled. It was a loving sexual interaction between husband and wife. Not always tender, but a meeting of two minds and two bodies merging into one. As we said in our marriage vows, to be together through thick and thin, to appreciate and love, to be honest and faithful to each other for the rest of our lives. I tried to live up to those vows. Pam and I talked a lot. She knew that I really loved Jim, even despite his old bad habits. She is a true friend. She helped me understand, even when Jim turned his back on me. He just didn't understand what I was going through. Pam and I went through my life over and over again. She suggested that I see a doctor. She even suggested a therapist, but I told her that Jim wouldn't spend that kind of money to tell a stranger his problems. When we had our bachelorette party, Pam told me in private to watch my behavior. I gave in too much and might regret it later. I told her, "The girls at the gym say they give in a little to get more attention." Pam just looked at me and said, "Think about it, Nancy. Do you really need the attention of strange men?" I knew she was right, but it was nice to be the center of attention. I allowed some men to touch me through my clothes to get more attention. I promised myself not to go further. After about 2 months of living like this, it started to get on my nerves. Men whispered in my ear how much they wanted me. What would they do to me? I told them, "No, I will never cheat on my husband." I made the mistake of telling a guy at work that just because my husband cheated on me didn't mean I would cheat on him. I've often wondered what it would be like to be with someone else. Jim was my only lover, and as far as I know, he was wonderful. I had nothing to compare it to, but he made me feel so good. I've never been obsessed with sex. But there were times when I wanted him. Jim could be gentle or rough, but he always seemed to put me first. I started getting hot flashes or something, I had mood swings, and I felt like Jim wasn't paying enough attention to me. I thought about all sorts of crazy things, some of them even sexy. This didn't make me happy. It scared me to death. I needed help. I didn't know what was happening to me. I felt like I was going crazy. I couldn't get over these fantasies in my head. Then I finally decided to tell Jim. I needed his hugs and kisses, his warmth and understanding that he always gave me. This safety net he seemed to have, a blanket of comfort and protection. Instead, he gave me an ultimatum. If I start an affair, he will file for divorce. He then told me he was moving, and I had 2 months to make a decision. I was devastated and didn't know where to turn. If it weren't for Pam standing by my side the first couple of weeks after Jim left, I wouldn't know where I would be today. Pam got divorced. She caught her husband in bed with another man one day when she returned from work early. She couldn't believe it. She ran to the nightstand, grabbed the gun, and pointed it at both of them. They were married for 7 years and divorced shortly after that. She started dating again but was very suspicious of who she went out with. Now she's dating a guy named Ray, whose wife left for another man about 3 years ago. They seem like a good couple, and I hope things work out for them. Pam deserves a better life. She is one amazing friend and woman you can trust. I made an appointment with the doctor for Wednesday. I had a meeting on Friday, and I wanted to try to keep my mind clear. When I went to see the doctor, a woman, she first wanted to talk to me for a few minutes. I told her about my mood swings, my constant crying, my out-of-control hormones. Then the conversation became more serious. I told her about the sexual side, my husband's ultimatum, and even the possible affair. She smiled at me and said that I should have come to her months earlier. If I had done this, then perhaps I would not have all these problems. She took me off contraceptives and prescribed some kind of hormonal relaxant. This was supposed to help control mood swings. Due to my weight loss, I no longer needed to take some of the pills I was taking. She said everything in my body was in conflict. I have started puberty, but there will still be many years before it ends. Then she looked at me seriously and said, "What you told me about your husband is a little sad. He should have stood by your side. I see too many loving couples who get divorced simply because they don't understand each other. Men will always pursue beautiful women. You, as a wife and mother, need to understand that all they want is sex. Many of these men are not in long-term relationships. It seems you and your husband need to have another conversation. I think when he finds out the facts, he'll be right there next to you." She then said that if I had any problems to call her immediately, otherwise she would see me in 2 months. I actually cried after talking to her. She just hugged me and said, "You'll be fine." Now, if I could survive that stupid meeting on Friday, maybe I could see Jim on Saturday and have our conversation. I missed him so much, this fool. I was a mess after Pam left. God, how could I do this to Nancy? I tried to call her, but the boys said she was at the doctor's. Well, at least that was a start. I wanted to talk to her so bad. I called her at work on Thursday. Nancy said, "It makes me so happy to hear your voice. Can you come over on Saturday so we can talk?" I asked, "What about Friday?" I wanted to clarify this meeting. She said, "I'd really like to, but I have a mandatory meeting and won't be able to get out until later this evening." I said, "Nancy, I love you. I just wanted you to know." "I love you too, Jim. Please come on Saturday. Please," she cried. "I'll be there. I guarantee it," I answered. I won't screw it up this time, I thought to myself. Thursday was terrible. I had dreams or nightmares. I dreamed that I came to a restaurant and Nancy was sitting on the sofa between 2 men. She was half drunk, her dress was pulled down, exposing her breasts, and the bottom was raised to her waist. I woke up in a deep sweat. Now it was Friday, and it was a very busy day at the store. I found it difficult to concentrate on business. I wanted to see Nancy and tell her everything would be okay. I'll be there to protect her. I called her office 3 times, and her bosses said she was in meetings or out. Damn. I'll have to wait until the evening unless she calls back. I asked Milton, one of my employees, to work the rest of the day and the next day, Saturday. I won't be in the store. He said it wasn't a problem. He was a good employee. I told him that I would send my sons to help him in the evening and on Saturday. I went to the mall to see Nancy. The secretary said that the bosses had gone out and would only return on Monday. They had some kind of district meeting and then another meeting just for the managers of their store this evening. She said I could leave a message and she would make sure Nancy received it. I just told her I'd call Nancy on Monday. I didn't want to arouse suspicion. She was just an office girl. I knew she wasn't part of this plan against Nancy. I walked out onto the sales floor and found Pam. She was a little kinder to me this time. She said she spoke to Nancy before she left for the meeting. She was so happy that I was going to see her on Saturday. I asked what she looked like and how she felt. Pam looked at me and said that was both good and bad. She said Nancy looked fantastic. She had on a smart black mini dress. She looked hot. Every man would want her. Thank God we have several bosses with brains. Only her bosses, Edward and Ryan, were going to propose to her. The other guys didn't want to ruin their lives or Nancy's life. They really loved her as a person. You must understand this information from Grapevine may be true or it may be a rumor. The only problem is that Ed and Ryan are big bosses, so no one will probably stand up to them. I thanked Pam for the information and told her what a true friend she was, and thanked her for helping me get my head out of my ass and do what was right. Pam looked at me and said, "You two are meant for each other. I don't want anyone to ruin that. You both really are my best friends." She then said that her boyfriend Ray is pretty special too. I went home to my apartment and cleaned up a little. I would have to dress up to go to a fancy restaurant, so I wore Dockers pants and a sports jacket. I was not a tie-wearing person. I was the owner of a hardware store. I called my sons and asked them about work in the evening and on Saturday. They just said, "No problem, Dad. Just tell Milton we'll be there to help him." Now it was 20:30, and I went to the store. Milton kept my sons busy stocking shelves. They were good workers, even if they were my sons. This store might be theirs one day. This would be my father's dream, so that the sons take over the family business. I approached Milton and asked for a roll of coins. He looked at me a little strangely, but handed me the roll. Then I left the store. I headed to the restaurant. When I entered the main room of the restaurant, I was surprised to see Pam and Ray sitting there having dinner. Pam smiled at me and said, "We may not be in a private dining room, but we're as close as we can get." She mentioned, "Many bosses started leaving. I haven't seen Nancy, Ed, or Ryan yet." Pam asked her boss when she came out, "Have you seen Nancy?" The boss responded, Ed and Ryan wanted to talk to her privately and asked her to wait. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. The head waiter asked to speak to Ryan. He reported that his car's alarm went off and his front window was broken. He needed to turn off the alarm. Ryan left the room to check his Mercedes. Nancy took the drink and threw it in Ed's face. "You've been teasing me with that ass for too long. It's time to pay. You don't have that worthless girlfriend and cowardly husband to protect you," as he reached under her dress to grab her vagina. At that moment, I took a scroll of coins from my pocket and burst through the door. Nancy turned around and screamed, "Jim!" I broke his nose with the first blow and maybe even his jaw. The coins scattered in all directions. Ed fell to the floor and then Ryan returned. Ryan yelled at me, "I'll sue you for everything you have. I'll take over your hardware store." As I approached him to apply for it as well, Nancy said, "Wait, Jim, I have something better." Ryan and I both looked at her as she took out the recorder and played a short clip. She then said, "We'll see who wins this lawsuit. I'll file a sexual harassment complaint on Monday." Nancy then turned to Ryan and Ed, who was still lying on the floor, and said, "The only reason I put up with your advances tonight was so I could get it on tape. Maybe this will somehow save another woman from your harassment. See you in court." And then she punched Ryan square in the groin. He screamed as he fell to the floor next to Ed. I took Nancy's hand, and as we walked to the door, there were people standing at the entrance watching the events unfold. They started applauding Nancy and me as we left the restaurant. The black dishwasher boy smiled at me and high-fived me. Nancy and I walked out the main door holding hands. Pam and Ray were sitting in their car in front of the restaurant. They were both smiling as Pam came out to give Nancy a big hug. Ray looked at me and said, "As we were leaving, we heard a big noise and a car alarm going off. We decided to stay a few minutes to see what was going on." I looked at Ray and said, "Thank you." He simply said, "Please." After Pam and Ray left, Nancy and I headed to my car. Then I realized that I had not said a word to her during this entire time. I stopped and looked at Nancy. "You look great. I'm the luckiest person on earth to have you. I'm so sorry for the way I acted. Please forgive me." Nancy cried and hugged me. She asked, "Will you take me home?" I said, "Are you kidding me? I won't let you out of my sight for the rest of this night. We'll send the boys to get your car tomorrow. I think it'll be safe here for the night, even though Ryan's Mercedes was damaged." And we both laughed. When we arrived home, we went straight to the bedroom and locked the door. As Nancy took off her dress, she looked at me and asked, "What's the matter, Jim? What are you thinking about?" I said, "Honey, why did you dress so nice for those bastards?" She looked at me and said, "I didn't dress for them. I dressed for you." "What? I don't understand." I replied, "Pam told me you'd be there for me when I talked to her today. I just trusted that you would keep your promise to protect me. That's why I got dressed for you. I wanted other men to know that you have something they will never have, and to look good for you when you come. They were just lucky to be there until you came. God, Nancy, I love you so much." We both undressed and lay down on the bed. We kissed and hugged. The next morning, when we woke up, our sons had already left for work. I got up to use the bathroom and then went into the kitchen and read the note on the refrigerator. It read, "Welcome home, Dad. We missed you." They signed themselves, Jacob and David. I was making coffee when Nancy walked into the kitchen and saw the note. She took a pen and wrote at the bottom, "Me too, Nancy." The rest of our weekend was great. Our sons helped me get home and went to get Nancy's car. When they returned, they said a black guy asked them what they were doing in the car. They told him it was their mom's car, and they came to get it. They showed the black guy the car keys, and he said it was normal. He simply watched the car until it was picked up. He told our sons that they had wonderful parents. He liked the way we handled the situation and then high-fived them. Our sons asked, "What happened, Dad? We always miss the good times. The dishwasher boy also said to tell you thank you for the roll of coins." Nancy and I just laughed and said, "We always protect those we love." I went to work on Monday morning. I didn't want to leave Nancy that day. It was like the beginning of a new relationship. I had a lot of work to catch up on, and Nancy went to see our lawyer. Once she played the tape of how Ed and Ryan behaved with her throughout the evening. The lawyer said it was a clear case of sexual harassment. She took leave until the harassment case was resolved. Milton and I were interviewing candidates for an accounting position. Nobody seemed suitable. Milton then came into the office and said that he had just interviewed the ideal candidate for the position and informed her that she could start the next day. I said, "What? You just hired someone without my consent?" "God, Milton, I can't believe you did that. I'm sorry, but I have to talk to her first. Please ask her to come in." I looked at the door, and Nancy came in. She looked at me and said, "I have all the necessary qualifications, and I can offer many additional benefits that no one else can. Do I get the job?" I just looked at her, kissed her, and said, "Life is wonderful." Nancy returned to the doctor about a month later, as she was told. The doctor talked to her and said how happy she was for her. Nancy had her hormones under control, and leaving her previous job relieved a lot of stress. The doctor was very happy that Nancy and I were able to work things out. But now Nancy had another problem. Because she stopped taking contraceptives, she became pregnant. Nancy was in some shock, she was happy, but she also cried. She didn't know how I would react. When Nancy returned to the store, she looked at me and asked, "Do you love me, Jim?" "Of course I love you. How can you ask such a stupid question? Do you have another problem? I will be there for you. I will be your support. Please tell me, Nancy. I am here for you." With tears in her eyes, she said, "Jim, I'm pregnant and I want our baby." "When? How? What happened?" I asked. All stupid questions. Nancy looked at me with a half smile. "When? During our renewed love for each other." "How?" "We made love to each other. What happened?" "I got pregnant from our love." "Yes?" I shouted. "Yes. I want our child." We both started crying. "I'm going to be a father again," I cried. It's been 9 months since all the problems started. We are now the proud parents of a beautiful girl who looks just like her mother. Nancy brings Pamela to the store with her. We named her after Pam because she helped save our marriage. Nancy became a real ace in accounting. I might have to start paying her. She keeps the books, so she can just pay herself if she wants. Our lawyers came back to us, and the store where Nancy worked decided to settle the case out of court after listening to the tape of how Ed and Ryan behaved with her throughout the evening. We got 6 figures, enough to pay for all 3 of our children's education at college. Ryan and Edward were fired. The store found out that this was not the first time this had happened on their part. After Nancy performed, many other girls did too. They all called Nancy and thanked her. They were glad to be rid of the burden they were carrying. It looks like Pamela and Ray are getting married this summer. We all spend time together. We're really happy for them. Daryl, the black dish boy, is now our favorite waiter at the restaurant. A couple more little things. Nancy's doctor made sure Nancy gained normal weight during her pregnancy. When it comes to sex and love, we have a lot of them. We made love for several days after giving birth. Damn, I never realized how sexy and radiant a pregnant woman can be. As Nancy says, for better and for worse, in sickness and in health, for richer and for poorer. Love your spouse and don't lie to him. This is what our marriage is based on. Life is beautiful. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.